Welcome back to Plague Scythe Studios, everyone. Ryan here, and today marks the beginning of a new series that a lot of you would probably argue is a completely pointless segmentation of my content, and well, you'd have a point, but it makes sense in my head, damn it, because a lot of the traditional reviews I do, they get kind of nerdy, right? I mean, we go fairly in depth and take a semi-technical look at some of this stuff, and I try to cover it in a way that most others don't. The downside is that, you end up with 25-minute, 40-minute, sometimes 60-minute plus videos that I can't sustain doing all the time. And more importantly, I skip over a lot of products that I have that I think would be nice to talk about and demonstrate. But, I simply don't have that much to say about them. But it isn't so cut and dry just to say, hey, go buy this thing. So because I'm an opinionated loudmouth American, I thought we could have sort of a miniature demo review series that I'm tentatively calling, at least, Soundcheck. You thought this channel name was bad, my series are even worse. So today I'm checking out some of Vadim Taranov's newer amplifier and effects VST plugins. It was about a year and some change ago that I featured Vadim Taranov stuff on a free VST tutorial. He still has a ton of stuff up there for free. The caveat being that basically all of it is 32-bit only, which isn't a big deal if your DAW has a built-in bridge or you don't mind using an external one. But if you're like on Cubase 9 Plus, then you have to contend with that. So the good news is that for the stuff we're looking at today, this is all natively 64-bit. I do believe there's a 32-bit version for each one of these as well. And although a couple of these are paid, a lot of this stuff is still free, which is good. And even the paid stuff, you can get a demo version and at least get a taste for the sound. It simply is limited to mono only, and the controls are basically limited to like noon and 3 o'clock, 6 o'clock, that sort of thing. It's crazy how good they still sound in that kind of gimped configuration, though. So the first thing I wanted to talk about is this super cool DoubleTracker plugin. There's only been a handful of doubler plugins that I've tried, period, and only a couple of those were really worth using, in my opinion, and really didn't go beyond like the demo stage, just trying to get a quick double track sound for writing music. To me, the benchmark has still been this TC Electronic Mimic doubler, which when set at least in the one dub position is really hard to pick out versus a real double track guitar if you're playing, more tight material. Now, if you're going for like super wide kind of chorusy Randy Rhoads sound, then discerning ears might be able to pick it apart. But for what I want to do with it, this is pretty great. And especially for real hardware, I still use it a lot. However, if you want to hook this thing up to an audio interface, then things can get a little cumbersome. This is so close to an actual double track guitar sound. I could not believe it. I'm assuming it's doing a lot of the same sort of modulated pitch, maybe a little bit of detuning. Definitely some dynamic delay going on in there. But whether or not you fine-tune the timing controls to your liking or simply leave everything at noon, you're going to get a really convincing sound out of this. This is a must-try plugin, in my opinion, if you're going for a doubled sound or even a light, like chorusing sound. I've not tried this some to mono, but maybe you can get something cool out of that. Either way, I think if you're in the songwriting stage or want to produce a quick demo, or hell, even the final version of your album, and you plan on, say, as a single guitarist in a band, replicating that double track sound with other hardware solutions or even software solutions, then this might be a good way to kind of, emulate that without faking anything. So go check this out. No complaints here. Following that's another freebie, but this time a full-fledged amplifier. The Jump. Doesn't take a rocket scientist to figure out what that's based on. But full disclosure, I'm not big on this one, and that's not to throw shade at Vadim's amp modeling, as you'll see shortly. That's not the problem. But there's plenty of other 5150, 6505 type plugins that I much prefer to this one. Even the old standby X50, I even used it recently on a mixing stream, and yeah, I mean, was it remarkable? No, but it's a bit more capable than this one. I don't know what it is, but the gain structure is really not as tight nor as saturated sounding as the real 5150 or even the 2, especially not the 3. And even when you throw a boost at it, it doesn't quite have the same sort of character that the actual 5150 amplifier does. You can definitely get it to work. It's a little too mid-heavy. I always found some of these revisions of the amplifier to be kind of honky. So I guess if you're into that, it definitely captures that aspect of it. But you know, the power amp drive, everything else, the depth presence control, it works as you would expect for this kind of amplifier. But I definitely think there's some better ones out of the litter. I even prefer his older, I think it was called the Heavy 50 something or another. Definitely not as, I would say, sophisticated amp modeling wise as this one, but the tones were there, even if it was only 32-bit. So give it a shot if you're looking at 5150 style plugins. But for my money, even for free, I think there's a couple other ones out there I much prefer. Unless you're cool with severely limited controls, you're gonna have to pony up 15 or 20 bucks for the next couple of amplifiers, or more if you feel like donating. And compared to some of the great freeware out there, it may be a hard cost to justify for some people. But if you're already in the market and looking at some of the competitors out there, and especially if you're only interested in like the amplifier side of things, this can be a really great value for those people. Both of these amps kind of in the same category, very much based on the same class of circuitry, but they both have their pros and cons. So the first one is the Redtone, which we actually explored in its aforementioned demo version in that tutorial video. It's been updated a few times since then. It does sound better to me. But as many of you probably guessed, this is indeed based off of the Fortin-Natos, which is really interesting because there's another Fortin-Natos plugin, the Fortin NTS by Neural DSP. And, you know, I definitely prefer this one. I'm not even going to sugarcoat it. There is more realistic amp-like qualities to it that without a scope and some heavy analysis, I couldn't tell you exactly what it is, whether it's just more advanced modeling engine or they have access to the actual amplifier. So it better be closer, not to mention a really great clean channel. But for the $110 this costs versus the, I don't know, $20 or so that the Redtone goes for, if I were buying over again today, I would probably go with the Redtone because it is so close. And even without comparing it to the NTS, it sounds great on its own. In fact, I would put this in terms of sound quality over the Randall Thrasher that I sold for recording, at least. It is that good, and obviously those have some very similar designs. Compared to the next amplifier on the list, this doesn't have quite so much immediately identifiable character. It just sounds like a great amp, which is good if that's the kind of thing you're going for. It definitely has that hot rodded Marshall sort of Soldano kind of aesthetic to it, of course, with the girth grind and gain controls. You really don't need a pedal up front for a vast majority of use cases unless you're an 8-string guitar player like I am, and a picky one at that. Definitely check it out in its demo form, and I can highly recommend it to a lot of people that might be interested in, again, like the NTS or other similar plugin packages, but simply don't care about any of the other effects, because this will probably do you for a lot of genres. Last but certainly not least, Blades, perhaps my favorite plugin that Vadim has released to this day, and it might be in like my top 5 premium plugins ever, because it sounds so cool. This is not one of those plugins that I listen to and think, oh wow, this is a super visceral, like realistic tube amplifier sound, but it is just like a produced electric guitar for heavy metal sound right out of the box, no matter where you set it. Of course, it has all the same great advantages as Redtone, because this is based off of the Randall Satan, which is kind of weird because the Satan is already like a mass-produced, slightly tweaked version of the Natos, so I'm surprised it sounds this different, or at least whatever material that Vadim was working off of must have been that different to warrant a different plugin. But for me, for the purely metal side of things, this is superior in every way. I just love the tone of this. Redtone definitely swings some of the more classic rock or hairband kind of sounds. If that's what you're going for, I would personally use something else anyway. But I definitely would pick this one over Redtone for my taste. It doesn't mean they're not both good, but compared to some of the more direct competition out there, like the Audio Assault Hellbeast, I think this just wipes the floor with Hellbeast, to tell you the truth. If you bought this for the super duper introductory price of like 10-15 bucks, not a bad value. You do get a few decent cabs in there, and you got the post effects section, and all this stuff is all in one. But I would much rather kind of pick and choose what other effects I want in my signal chain, use a few free impulse responses if I have to, because this thing is just a gain machine. No matter what kind of guitar you throw at it. I've tried, obviously my 8 strings, 6-string active pickups. Tried reamped tracks with stuff that ranges from blackouts to bare knuckle pickups. It just works. This is actually one of those products you can actually say it just works. So whether you like to boost amplifiers or you're a plug straight in sort of guy, definitely give Blades a try, especially if you like Ola England's tone from like Fure Incarnatus onwards, for Feared and all of his stuff. And that concludes today's sound check. If you enjoyed these tones that you've heard today, please consider go checking out these plugins and buying one or two. I have no association with Vadim Taranov's work, but I am a big fan of it, and I'll definitely be around to check out the newest stuff as it releases going forward. Thank you so very much for watching. We'll see you next time. Bye.